John chapter 6. John chapter 6. Thank you. And reading from verses 1, we'll probably finish in verse 15. John chapter 6, 1 to 15. I'm sure all of us have many times read these stories in the Gospels. But this afternoon, I want to speak of this in a little bit different way. And this afternoon, now, I want to ask us, who are we thinking like? Are we thinking like Philip, or are we thinking like Andrew? This passage is talking about two people. It's talking about one disciple called Philip, the other disciple called Andrew. And this afternoon, the topic is, think like Andrew. Think like Andrew. Never think like Philip. Now, I'm not saying Philip is a bad guy. You see, the interesting part is, I was thinking about this. Jesus had 12 disciples. Did you think all 12 of them were the same kind and type of mentality, attitude, heart? Did you think all of them were the same? No, they were not. One was more faithful, one was less faithful, one was so doubtful, one never doubted. One said, I will love you and die for you, and then the cock crew, and then he ran away. The 12 disciples were more a bunch of clowns, in modern terminology, if you want to say. They were a bunch of clowns. Have you seen, we all have clowns in our lives. Some of our friends are clowns. They'll say, we'll do anything for you, Pa. Forget about anything. You'll be stuck somewhere and you won't have even 50 rupees to get a taxi and come back, and you ask them, can you GPay me? And say, balance is low, da. He'll do anything for you, it seems. Imagine if you go to jail and you ask him to bail you out. He'll say he doesn't have taxi money to come there. He might ask you to GPay him the taxi money for him to come to take you out of jail. You see, we have a lot of clowns in our life. Jesus had some clowns. Jesus also had some clowns. But you know what's the good part? He loved these clowns. He loved them. In as much as he loves all of us, at some point of time, we are all clowns to Jesus. We're all clowns, knowingly or unknowingly. We behave like clowns. At any given point of time, we'll behave like Peter. We'll behave like Philip. We'll behave like Judas. If you've never done that, there will come a day in your life where you'll behave like one of these. They always keep saying, the true disciples and the true lovers of Jesus will be known during the time of tribulation. You know what's the time of tribulation? It's not too far away. The tribulation time is when the Antichrist will rule the earth, and we'll still be there, and they'll come and probably ask you directly, no beating around the bush, do you love Jesus or you don't love Jesus? And if you say you love Jesus, you're probably going to be dead. They kill you. Or if you say you love Jesus, you won't get ration, you won't get water, you won't get electricity. So they say the true lovers of Jesus will be known only during the tribulation. And that's why some Christians argue and say, that's why I don't want to be during the tribulation, I want to be raptured. Now there's a big argument about that. Pre-tribulation, post-tribulation, pre-rapture, post-rapture. Some will say first rapture will come, then tribulation. Some will say tribulation come, rapture. But anyway, long story short, people say, I want to be raptured with Christ, and I don't want to stay down there on earth and pass or fail that test. At some point of time, we're going to behave like disciples of Jesus. So let's read. John chapter 6, verses 1. Think like Andrew. After this, Jesus crossed over to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. Then Jesus climbed a hill and sat down with his disciples around him. It was nearly time for the Jewish Passover ceremony and celebration. Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, I was thinking, leaving all the disciples, why did he turn to Philip? He says, turning to Philip, he asked, "Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them." Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with his huge crowd?" "Tell everyone to sit down," Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered about 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people. Afterward, he did the same with the fish. And they all ate as much as they wanted. After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, "Now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted." So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. When the people saw him do this miraculous sign, they exclaimed, "Surely he is the prophet we have been expecting." When Jesus saw that they were ready to force him to be their king, he slipped away into the hills by himself. Wow. Let's get back to it says, after this, Jesus crossed over to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. Then Jesus climbed a hill and sat down with his disciples around him. It was nearly the time for the Jewish Passover celebration. Verse 5, Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked, "Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" I was amazed after reading those 4 verses and that 5th verse. And I was just thinking one thing. He hardly even started preaching or praying or speaking. He was just gathering and people were all coming, and he went up this hill with his disciples and he saw this huge crowd, and immediately what comes to Jesus' mind? Hunger for the people. Not even to preach and teach. And if we had to allow some of our pastors to go there, they would have started all their tamasha. Hallelujah. They would never have even bothered whether people were hungry, or they're the son, or they would have not bothered. They just want to go and do their ministry. You know what Jesus was looking at? He was looking at the needs of people, the comfort of people. He was not there wanting to preach and teach. No, he was not. He was compassionate about their well-being. That blew me. Which pastor and preacher and teacher today is bothered about the well-being of people rather than they're bothering about preaching and doing great stuff in ministry and church and programs? They're also worried about that. They're not bothered about the well-being of people. Ministry is well-being of people, not well-being of programs and events. Today, sadly, we're conducting church and ministry like political parties conduct campaigns. Just like how the political parties do these campaigns, we're doing ministry. The only difference is we're holding Bible in the hand. They're holding their photograph in their hand. We are holding Bible in the hand. That's all we're doing. What Jesus did here, he looked at the people, looked at Philip. He's not bothered about starting the ministry, and he's not bothered about worship team. Are you ready? He's not bothered. Hey, let's get. No. He looked at Philip. He saw these people, looked at Philip. Turning to Philip, he said, "Where can we buy bread to feed these people, Philip?" He's already thinking about lunch. Even before preaching, he's thinking about lunch. Never be like Philip. Never ever be like Philip. That's today's message. Be like Andrew. Look at Philip. This is Philip. This is Jesus' own disciple. His own disciple. Turning to Philip, where can we buy bread for these people? He was testing Philip. He was testing Philip. It says, for he already knew what he was going to do. Jesus already knew what he was going to do. Listen, Don't think you're too smart. Jesus knows what he wants to do. He just wants your opinion. And your opinion has to be in line with what he wants to do. Listen to me. When Jesus asks you something, he's not asking you because you have knowledge and experience and great understanding. No. It says Jesus was testing Philip. Testing for what? Why would Jesus test his own disciple? Why would he do that? 3 years there with Jesus. Why would he test his own disciple? So he says, I'm just testing Philip. I know what I'm going to do. I want to just test Philip. He says, he knew what he was going to do. He was testing Philip. Philip replied, even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them. Did Jesus ask Philip to give his salary? Did Jesus tell Philip, can you go and borrow some money and feed these people? Did any of that conversation happen? Jesus asked, from where we will get bread for these people. Look at that. Look at it. It says, where can we buy bread to feed all these people? He never asked Philip how much money you have. No. He says, where can we buy bread? Look at Philip. Jesus' own disciple. What a joker he is. For me, Philip's a joker. Nothing less than that. Philip replied, even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them. This is what some of us do, or maybe a lot of us do, when God wants to bless us. We are searching for our salary. We are searching for our loans. We are searching for our relatives to give money. We are searching for our friends to contribute. We are never going back to Jesus and saying, Jesus, can you give me a loan? You see, Philip was a joker. He's saying, even if we worked for months, we can't feed these people. As if Jesus asked him for his salary. That's an insult to Jesus. It's an insult. And so he says, we can't feed them. Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. We all need to be like Andrew. Be like Andrew. That's what today's message is about. Be like Andrew. Don't be like Philip. They were both the same disciples in Jesus' team. But one was so different to the other. One was like a negative guy and one was like a positive guy. And it says, then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Now listen. Philip is looking at the crowd and saying, this is not going to happen. While Andrew was looking at the people and what they had. You can look at the crowd and get absolutely disillusioned, but you can also look in the crowd and figure out a miracle. Andrew chose that. Andrew chose that. While Philip was looking at the scary part of it, Andrew was looking at the simpler side of it. He was looking at, there's a boy here, there's a woman here, and he spotted the tiffin box maybe. How did he know that guy had food? Probably some bundle or something was there. His mother would have given him some food to eat. Now, listen to me. Listen to me. This is where I get very emotionally stirred up. What guts do you think Andrew had? Listen to me carefully. What guts and audacity do you think Andrew had? Knowing there are 5,000 more people there, a small boy with a small tiffin box, probably 2 people can eat from that, right? What guts, what audacity for Andrew to look at Jesus and say, there's a small boy here with a little food. Would you do that? Listen to me. You go to a meeting and the organizer says, we need to have lunch for everybody. And suddenly you think you will look at somebody with the tiffin box and say, Pastor, there's one guy here with Tair Sadam. Would you do that? Seriously, would you do that? You'll never do that. You'll never do that. Look what Andrew did. Why did Andrew do that? That's a scary thing to do. People would have made fun of him. I'm sure some of the Bible doesn't record it, but I'm very sure some of the disciples were like, Para Seriana Madapayam. They would have made fun of him. What an idiot that fellow is. What's he talking about? A different box when 5,000 people are here. Probably a lot of people have spoken about Andrew. Why did Andrew say that? What guts and audacity. I call that passionate faith. I call that passionate faith. Andrew was trying to think like Jesus. Jesus said, there are people here. Where can we buy bread for them? Immediately Andrew's trying to see who has bread. And Philip is saying, no, we can't. In your life situations, in my life situations, we're always going to get this Philip and Andrew situation. Somebody's going to tell you, this is not possible, man. With your kind of salary, with your kind of income, this is not possible, man. But it just takes an Andrew. It just takes an Andrew to say, I got something small here. Jesus, you think you can use this? Listen. It says, then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. There's a young boy here with barley loaves and 2 fish. But see what he's saying. But what good is that with this huge crowd? Even Andrew doesn't know. Even Andrew is not sure. But he took the courage, which I call passionate faith, stood up and said, Jesus, there's this boy here. I'm not sure what good it is, but Jesus, there's this boy here. Would you take that passion? Would you have that passionate faith to stand up and say, Jesus, I need to buy a car. I've got 1,000 rupees in my bank account. You think you can do something with that? Jesus, I want to build my house. I've got 50 bricks lined up there. Would you say that? Jesus, I need to pay my house loan. I've just got rice money with me. Can you pay my house loan? Or are you waiting for someone in your family to say, hey, keep quiet. We don't even have money for the electricity bill. What are you talking about, the loan? That was Philip. That was Philip. Andrew chose to be a different guy. He chose to be a different guy. And what happened? It's history what happened. It's history. Verse 10. Tell everyone to sit down, Jesus said. Tell everybody to sit down. So they all sat down on the grassy slope. The men alone numbered about 5,000. So there was probably way beyond 5,000 people. Only the men were 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God for it. What did Jesus do? What did Jesus do? He just didn't start distributing. He didn't have to pray. Why did Jesus have to pray? He's God. Why does God have to pray and give thanks? Why? Because there is power in giving thanks. There is meaning in giving thanks. There is acknowledgement in giving thanks. There is humility in giving thanks. There is faith in giving thanks. There is love in giving thanks. Jesus didn't have to give thanks to his Father. He is God. It says, but he gave thanks for the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. It says, Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people. Listen, the first blessing, if you want blessing, is learn to give thanks. First, learn to have manners in your life. First, say thank you. A lot of Indian kids don't have basic manners. Do you know that? Do you know Indian kids don't have basic manners? They don't know how to say thank you. That's why when they grow big, they're not thankful kids. Be it with parents, be it with society, be it anywhere. They're not thankful kids because they were not taught to be thankful. Your first blessing is being thankful. You know what's your second blessing? Distribute your thankfulness. That's your second blessing. If you want blessing in your life, learn to distribute your thankfulness. I'm telling you that. I'm talking from experience. I'm not talking from reading books and magazines. And I'm talking from God's word. First of all, with what you have, whether it is 5 rupees or 1,000 rupees or 3 fish or 5 fish, say, God, can you do something with this? I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for this little thing you have here with me. I'm thankful. Can you do something? And after that, after the thankfulness, tell God you want to distribute that. You will see multiplication happen. The minute you do thankfulness and say, this is all mine, you've lost your thankfulness. You've lost your blessing. You've lost it. If you tried to preserve and protect your blessing, you lost it. I guarantee you it. Distribute it. You know what the Bible says? Freely you have received, freely give. Freely you have received, freely give. You know, it's a struggle to give and help and to be kind. You know the struggle? It doesn't come naturally to you. Nobody has the natural talent of being generous. Nobody has that talent. Nobody is born with generosity. Nobody. You work on it. For many years of my life, I've been working on generosity. I've been working on kindness. And sometimes, you know, even a few days back, even just a few days back, I was thinking, man, gosh, I helped a couple of people with a big amount of money. Gosh, man, I could have paid my credit card bill tomorrow. I've got a credit card bill today to pay. I've got a big credit card bill today to pay. I've got another big one day after tomorrow. I've got another big one. I've got 4 credit card bills to pay. I've got a home loan to pay. I've got a gold loan to pay. I've got like 10 things to pay. And a few days back, I've been helping people with big amounts of money. And I'm like, God, man, what am I doing? And when I read this, I said, God, I'm on the right track. I'm being thankful and I'm distributing my thankfulness. Now, God, pay my bills. Pay my bills, Jesus. Generosity is not inborn. Nobody is born with love and generosity. You work it. You practice it. It's not going to come to you and be in your life. And when it comes to you, accept it, nurture it, feed it, grow it. But you know what we nurture and grow? Hatred, jealousy, anger, irritation. We've been nurturing these things instead of nurturing generosity and giving and kindness and love. That's why we get back what we nurture. You're getting back what you're nurturing and feeding. If you feed anger and hatred and jealousy, you'll get back the fruits of that. Start feeding your faith. Start feeding your generosity. You will see the goodness of God. Did you know that your life and my life are not run by our salaries? Do you know that? Do you know that? It's not run by our salaries and income. It's not run by our talent and our education. It's run by the goodness and the mercy and the faithfulness of Jesus. That's what it's run by. The minute you acknowledge that, you'll be blessed. The minute you say, I can do this, that's when you're going to fail. Jesus doesn't like anybody saying, I can do that. Because if you can do that, then what is he going to do? What is he going to do if you can do that? And it says, he blessed it and he distributed them to the people. Afterward, he did the same with the fish. And they all ate as much as they wanted. Not even one quantity. As much as seconds and third and fourth. As much as they want. After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, now gather the leftovers. Wow. Gather the leftovers, he says, so that nothing is wasted. If you do your thankfulness properly, if you do your distribution properly, guaranteed leftovers are going to be there. Guaranteed leftovers. And you know what God's concerned about? He's concerned that you don't waste the leftovers. Even the leftovers, Jesus said, gather them, men. No wasting food. No wasting food. Gather them. They picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. It's interesting that there was 12 baskets there. You know what I'm thinking in my mind? I don't know what you're thinking. I think Jesus wanted to give 1 basket for all the disciples to teach them faith. I think after the end, you'd have called all the disciples, come here, all you jokers and all you fellows, come here. Yeah. I want you to know this is how life happens. Take back the leftovers after the big feast. Go back home now. You'll have something for dinner at home. When you're right with God in your faith and your distribution, you will take back a basket to give to more people and for yourself. But if you hold on to your blessing and say, my this, my that, my income, my salary, my, oh my gosh, God help you. God help you. I feel sad if you have that attitude. Don't. That's an absolute non-blessing. Absolute non-blessing. No blessing in that. It says they had 12 baskets. When the people saw him do this miraculous sign, they exclaimed, surely he's the prophet we have been expecting. People are funny. People will follow you for what you give them. Isn't it? People will follow you for what you show them and give them and what you do for them. Nobody's going to follow you if you don't do anything to them. It's funny. People are funny. When I read the first portion of that chapter, when crowds were following Jesus, I was asking, why are they following him? Why were those crowds following him? You know, all these elections are happening right now, right? You get big bunches of people following everybody. Suddenly you'll find 100 people near one fellow's house. You think they actually like that guy. You know why they went there? They'll get something and they'll get something. And they'll come back home. It's so funny. I saw an Instagram reel. Some young guys, teenagers, they were putting one of the party's, scarf on thing. And they were campaigning for this party. And one reporter came to them and said, hey, so you're campaigning for this party. So you like this party? They said, nah, we don't like this party. So why are you campaigning? On Instagram. It's the camera. They're having one party's logo telling the camera, we don't like these fellows because we're getting this. Wow. Why do those people follow Jesus? Not because they love Jesus and all that stuff. Read that, it's interesting. It says, John chapter 6, verse 1. After this, Jesus crossed over to the far side of Galilee. He also knew the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd followed him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs. Why they followed him? Not because he is Jesus and he's God and he's a great teacher now. They saw miraculous signs. Today, if anybody is following you, they're not following you for nothing. Don't think somebody follows you for nothing. You're the biggest idiot if you believe that. You're the biggest idiot. They're following you for something. The minute that something is not seen, they'll be following somebody else. Or maybe even while you're seeing, they're seeing it, they're following somebody else. But you'll know the real effect when you stop showing them what they're seeing. The true love and life and dedication is not to follow somebody for something, but to follow them because you love them. That's the reason why there are millions and millions of Christians in the world. Millions of Christians in the world. Do you think all of them are the same? Do you think? No, they're not. They're not the same. That's why, interestingly, Jesus, when he was ascending to heaven, he says, go make disciples. He never says, go and make Christians. He never says, go and make church believers. Jesus doesn't want church believers and Christians. He wants disciples. Who's a disciple? A follower. Follower. You must be seeing all these sadhus and these gurujis and all these guys, right, in our country. You know how many thousand followers they have? Thousands and thousands of followers. They don't get anything from these guys. Nothing. They don't get anything. You know how faithfully they follow them? Faithfully they follow them. And one of them just only cracks jokes. All the guy does is just cracks jokes to his disciples, and they're like, yeah. It's just joke time and clapping time. That's it. Thousands of followers for jokes. Nothing spiritual the guy speaks. I watched that guy. He's one of my favorites. I watch him all the time. Nothing spiritual he speaks. 80% is rubbish. In fact, if he speaks a statement and if you ask him to repeat it, he can't repeat it also. Because he doesn't know what he spoke. Rubbish. But they love him. They love him. Why do they follow Jesus? Miraculous signs. That's why they followed him. Why do we come to church? Simple question. Why do we come to church? Why do we love Jesus? Why do we love Jesus? Simple question. Ask yourself, why I love Jesus? Why I don't love somebody else? I'm just asking. It says, when people saw him do this miraculous sign, they exclaimed, surely the prophet we've been expecting. Now listen, this is the fun part that I love. Verse 15. John chapter 6, verse 15. I love this part because this is the part where all the Christian leaders and pastors and bishops and popes have to see how they need to function. It says, when Jesus saw that they were ready to force him to be their king, he slipped away into the hills by himself. When Jesus saw what? That they were forcing him to be their king. So basically, when Jesus got to understand that these people are trying to make him their leader and their king and try to make him a hero, it says he slipped away. He slipped away and went by himself into the hills. If it was one of us, preachers and pastors there, we would have readily become the pastor of that group. Readily. You'd have all ran and said, wow, nice group, man. Nice tithe, nice offering, nice ministry. Nice, everything nice. Let's go. Let's lead these people. Jesus slipped away and went by himself. He's done his job. He's done his job. He went away. He knew what he came for. Jesus is not trying to make himself popular. No. He's not trying to brand himself and his ministry. No. He's trying to only make sure that he makes us understand who he is, who the Father is, and who they are to us. That's all he's trying to make people understand. And today, if we are followers of Jesus, we have only one purpose and focus in our lives: to make Jesus known, not make ourselves known. Don't try to make yourself known. Don't make yourself known. Make Jesus known. Make Jesus be lifted up. You know, the Bible says, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. How many times in our lives we are lifting up Jesus so that men will be drawn to Jesus? How many times? Or how many times are we lifting ourselves so people will be drawn unto us? How many times are we doing that? In our ministry, in our social work, in our job, what are we doing? Are we trying to lift us up? Lifting ourselves up? No. Wrong. Let's lift up Jesus. The secret of blessing is lifting up Jesus. The secret of blessing is to be like Andrew, not to be like Philip. The secret of blessing is to find something small and ask Jesus, can you do something? The secret of blessing is to thank that small thing. The secret of blessing is to distribute your thankfulness. That is the secret of blessing. If you follow that, I'm telling you, I'm assuring you, guaranteeing you, if you follow this procedure that we just read in this chapter, guaranteed blessing. Guaranteed blessing. Because it's the process of the kingdom. It's not a human process. It's the way the kingdom functions. Be right with God. Be right with yourself. And be right with people. That's all it's asking us to do. Be right with God. Be right with yourself. And be right with people. Don't use people. Don't abuse people. Don't manipulate people. Don't judge people. Don't trick people. Don't corner people. Don't do these things. It's evil. It's evil. Don't do these things. Just be a loving child of God. That's all. Just be a faithful child of God. That's all. Learn to look at the blessings rather than the curse. Learn to look at the good things than the bad things. Learn to look at the small things than the big things. Learn to find the solution than the problem. Jesus never asked Philip, what's the problem for the lunch? Philip, what's the problem for the lunch? Jesus asked him the solution for the lunch. And Philip caused a problem, while Andrew brought the solution. Jesus knows the problem. He's not asking you about the problem. He's asking you, what's the solution to the problem? He doesn't want your problem to be explained to him. He knows the problem. He wants your solution. If Jesus came to your house today and said, there's a sick man on the road near your house, he's not asking you to explain another problem about the sick man. He's not expecting you, yes, Lord, I've been seeing him for 1 week. He's very sad. He's not asking you that. He's asking you, what can you do about it? Or rather, what did you do about it for 1 week? So give Jesus the solution. Don't magnify the problem. He's asking you the problem. He asked Philip, where can we buy bread? And Philip is causing more problems. When Andrew came and said, God, there's a small boy here. Think you can do something here? Wow. Jesus is looking for Andrews. He's not looking for Philips. You can decide if you want to be an Andrew or if you want to be a Philip. That's all stand.